In today's episode, Diedrich makes a deal. The party also solves the mystery of the letter.
And they follow the Azyr towards their biggest challenge yet. I am Chris.
And I'm Matt.
Welcome to Roleplay Chat.
We're two game masters who can't stop talking about role-playing games.
And today we continue our Blood and Betrayal campaign diary. Today's episode is called Following the Azyr.
And I mean, if we kick it off right where we left off last time, there's a little bit of overlap. Because last time, Randall and Ungrim went off on their own little adventure. You can watch that video on top of me.
Called A Daring Excursion.
Yeah, it was pretty fun. It was an improvised session. But the rest of the party was busy doing other things while that was going on. Mm-hmm. So while those two were off exploring the Brass Keep, Ludolf was busy doing things that he probably didn't want to be doing. As always, Father Percival, one of the priests of Sigmar that works in his church, was giving him ridiculously mundane tasks to do, things that were far below Ludolf's skill and talent. Things like sorting books, cleaning the latrines, as always, one of his favorite things to delegate.
Yes. Well, this was going on. Otis spent a little bit of time with Ungrim at the last drop, but at one point during the week that went between last game and today's episode, if you want, at one point Otis just disappears, kind of mysteriously, saying he has things to do elsewhere in the city.
Yeah, obviously Diedrich accompanied Ludolf to the Temple of Sigmar and spent a lot of time there. In between tasks, Ludolf would help Diedrich conduct research on the letter. There were a lot of names. One name in particular that stood out in the letter Diedrich received from his master was the Crimson Skull. They did a lot of research and actually found out that the Crimson Skull was a group with very little information on them. Mm-hmm. But one thing that they found was that they were able to successfully summon a demon and imprison it somewhere.
Yes, and it was related to the chaos god Khorne. So that's pretty much where they are at this point. Mm-hmm. And also, something interesting that Diedrich did by the end of this week, he wanted information on this, again, Crimson Skull, and figured maybe I should ask someone. And they had seen in the shadow someone that was known to have a lot of contacts and information. Mm-hmm. Someone called Wemmer Wooten at the last drop, a bar that they often go to, especially Ungrim and Randall and Otis.
Yeah, and Diedrich was very interested by this individual. He was kind of introduced to him as this information broker, someone who would do anything to get information. Information is power. And to Diedrich, this resonated with him as well. You know, as a blue wizard, information about the future was almost like a currency. It was something that was very valuable. And Diedrich spent a lot of his time growing up and his education learning about how valuable information was and how using the Azyr was a way to look into this information. So he was very curious to meet this man. Was a little bit shocked at how rough around the edges he seemed, but he was kind of oozing with this kind of, not power's the wrong word, but this confidence. You know, his confidence about nothing's going on that I don't know about, kind of thing. You know, that was kind of the way he appeared to be.
Yeah, this man is standing in a little booth at the side of the tavern with two bodyguards, standing like this, having a presence all over the room. And Diedrich approaches him, and this guy is pretty muscular for someone who's supposed to be just about information. He has a huge scar in the neck that is like almost all the way, and Diedrich approaches him with an offer.
Mm-hmm. Basically, Diedrich tells him, he says, kind of whispers to him, saying, "I'm a blue wizard. I'm a journeyman. I know you like information. I will offer you a favor, alluding to, I will essentially conduct a premonition for you if you tell us what you know about the Crimson Skull." This kind of makes Wouten's ears perk up. Oh, a premonition, you say.
That's worth a lot. Yeah, so they agree. And there's a bit of delay here, but essentially, Diedrich goes ahead and do the ritual to get some premonition around Wimmerwooten and maybe some kind of rivalry. Like Wimmerwooten suspects that someone is trying to get to him, and it wants to know whom, I guess.
So yeah, Diedrich spends the night conducting his ritual, looking up at the night sky, and sees a vision of an older lady named who's actually named in the vision Rita. This older lady is handing a pouch of shaking coins, gold, it looks like a heavy pouch, to a big man, a muscular man, and barks orders at him. Presumably a hitman of sorts. The next morning, Diedrich returns to meet with Wimmerwooten and gives him this information. Tells him from start to finish about what he saw in his premonition. And for the record, Blue Wizards always must tell the entire truth of their premonitions if they are to tell anything about them at all.
Yeah, they can be, they cannot lie about it, but they can be cryptic if they want.
Diedrich hasn't figured this out yet.
Yeah. And Wimmerwooten in exchange offers information. He's like, I don't know anything about the Crimson Skull for sure, but what I've learned is that there is an Ulrich priest that was found dead with some kind of a skull marking on his person. The group investigates a little bit and eventually have access to the body through our clever positioning. Anyway, they make their way there, and they found out that the mark was actually put on the body before death,
which was very fascinating. We thought maybe at first that it was something that happened after, like post-mortem, but no. This was there significantly before too, like not just a couple days. It was there for a while. So the party kind of digests this information, and as they're doing that, Otis returns for a brief moment to tell Ludolf and Diedrich that Randall and Ungrim had returned and that they should go meet them at the last drop. They have critical information that they need to share. So Diedrich and Ludolf stop what they're doing and return to the last drop.
So as they meet Ungrim and Randall, Ungrim and Randall are very excited to show their new finding, and they produce a flask of what they call Stardust. They're like, we got Stardust. And people are, what is Stardust?
What are you talking about?
Yeah. And they explain the adventure and the mithril and the greenskins and everything that you can find in the Daring Excursion Blood and Betrayal campaign diary. And Diedrich is very excited to learn that the letter of his master, they've solved the piece, and now they have this Stardust.
So they pull out the letter and recall one of the passages that actually refers to Stardust. And I'll just read it out. So it says, "Read carefully, as the sky will show you the way, for Stardust shines the brightest through the lens of the far and the future." So they have the letter out, and Ungrim just says, "Let's just put it on." And he opens up the flask, dumps it on the letter, and now there's all this Stardust on the letter. I'm not too sure what he was expecting, because at that point, nothing happens. The party looks a little confused. Diedrich, the gears in his head start grinding and thinking, and he remembers that his master referred to the spyglass that he had, and that actually Diedrich now has, as the lens to the far and the future. Calling it kind of as a generic term to help with premonitions and whatnot. So it made Diedrich think, let's see what happens if I look at the letter with my spyglass.
So he pulls it out and sees through that the Stardust actually shines brightest at certain spot on the letter. And looking at it through the spyglass, it actually focuses and creates a pattern, almost a skylight. And he recognized some constellation and the specific positioning. Diedrich is like, I can actually work with that and geolocate that sky. So that's kind of like the specialty of blue magic, is knowing the sky and using it to channel their power. So he's like, oh, we basically have a location now.
Yeah, so they pull out a map, they discuss, and they figure out that their next target or their next destination is about 7 days travel from where they are. So they spend the night, they rest, they get all the supplies they need, and the next morning they hit the road.
Yes, so they leave and they have a chariot with some equipment on it, right?
Yeah, they have a chariot. The one thing that is missing, though, is Otis.
Yeah.
Yet again, Otis is nowhere to be found. He's apparently dealing with some business that he has to attend to in the city. So the party's traveling along the road. Otis isn't there. They're assuming he's working on the things that he was working on before. In their chariot, on the main road, they encounter a bridge that has been knocked down. They struggle to get over it, but they manage to do so without really losing anything. And then camp for the night.
Yes. So the group starts resting for the night, and they found kind of a abandoned house, and they're guarding, like they have their
the rotations and whatnot.
Yeah. And at one point, they hear someone coming up the stairs because they're on the second floor of this house. And apparently it's a gang of scavengers they hear them talk, and it's about like just gathering the leftovers from people running away from the war and the danger. So Omgrim,
it was his turn on guard duty, who hears them first before anybody else, kind of wakes up the rest of the party as fast as he can, really, because he wants to go and see what's commotion. He's a pretty intimidating looking guy.
Yeah.
He approaches the scavengers and, hello, what are you doing here? And they kind of freak out. They're not too sure what to do. And after already being kind of scared and intimidated by this fearsome looking slayer, Ludolf, in his full plate mail, or not full plate mail, but he has some pretty hefty armor, approaches the party next. They see a priest of Sigmar, they see a slayer, they kind of say, we're leaving, sorry to bother you, and they kind of leave fearfully.
They're clearly here for easy picking, and it's no longer that, so they make their way, they leave. So the rest of the night is uneventful, and the next day they set off for the next part of their journey. Yeah,
they travel for a few days here and there, encountering people along the road. And when they make it to the last village before the Dracul Forest, they actually see a big smokestack. They run towards it, hoping to help people who are maybe stuck in a fire or being attacked. And they actually find a pretty vacated location. There's a home that's been mostly, the fire is ending. It's kind of like, I forget how you would call it, disseminating. Anyway, no longer a live fire. And there's a big clearing of where, I guess, beastmen could have been. There's lots of markings and tracks in the grass.
They investigate. They find it was kind of like a makeshift camp, and they find the hooves marks, and they can figure out there's been some combat here, some struggling. And I think it was Omgrim that found also a necklace that looked like the head of a wolf. And using the knowledge of Ludolf with this kind of thing, they figured out it was probably a priest of Ulrich. That was kind of one of their way to identify them. So because there's no body, they see a little bit of blood. They see beastmen bodies, but they don't see any other kind of body. They figured from the dragging marks, there's probably been some capture. They've been captured. Are they alive? Are they dead? We don't know. And they're like, we need to follow those tracks and save those priests of Ulrichs.
And that's where we're going to end today's episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Stay tuned for next week. We're going to be condensing and talking about the behind the screens, as we usually do. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can do so by contacting us on Twitter. Our handle is @roleplaychat with underscores in between role and play.
We also have an email. It's contactroleplaychat@gmail.com.
So hit that subscribe, give us a like, comment below, and we'll see you guys next week. That is not how we usually sign off.
That's all, Matt.
That's everything for today, Chris.
That's all, Matt.
Let's call it a chat.